welcome to another fabulous West Coast edition of Lab Rats. My name is Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And yes, we're still in Vancouver.
We are in Vancouver.
I like Vancouver for their salmon and their delicious other foods. I don't know. I have no Vancouver song for you, unfortunately, today. Today, though, we should talk about the topic.
Topics? Why? I thought we were just here to rattle off about nothing.
Well, normally we just vent about stuff. But okay, no, today we respond to you, our lovely viewer. We have had a survey going, and we've been saying, hey guys, what do you want to see more of on Lab Rats? And you've said, show us more things about our routers.
Networking.
So we're going to talk about wireless security.
Yeah, and we actually had one specific request via email recently. We did a wireless, setting up a wireless connection.
Yes.
And we had a viewer that said, you guys really should have talked about security in that. And you know, we didn't do that because we'd actually done an episode on this before.
Yes.
Right at the beginning, I think. I think it was episode number one.
Or two, yeah.
Right. But you know what? It's always a timely topic. We need to talk about it again. So if you're just tuning in, we've got all the new goods.
We do.
Not 69 episode ago goods.
All right. So let's have a look at a message from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with wireless security.
This is a pair of sneakers. They're worn and comfy. This is a Jack Russell Terrier. It likes shoes. This is Camtasia Studio 4. It can edit your screencasts. Now answer our trivia question. What screencast editor can be left unsupervised and doesn't smell like feet? I'll be back at the end of the show with the answer.
A lot of people ask me, in fact, I would say probably the fourth most popular question is, hey Andy, how do I set up my router and what's with wireless security?
Yeah, I mean, it's wireless network security is a little bit baffling, I think. People don't quite get what it does.
No, and I don't blame them.
They just know that it keeps them out of networks.
The router people have not made it much easier. I mean, it's gobbledygook as far as I can tell. When you go into your router and you look at all those settings, you go, huh? It
doesn't make any sense.
I don't get it.
By default, when you're setting up a lot of these routers out of the box, you put the software into your CD-ROM drive and you go, and there's not even a mention of it in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
It just automatically sets up a few basic things and away you go.
But never fear, Lab Rats fans, because we're going to take you through it today. We are so benevolent. We're going to share our gifts of technology with you.
You're such a saint.
I know.
Plus a few pitches along the way, probably.
Well, I have a really great chapter about wireless security in my book, The Absolute Beginner's Guide to Security, Spam, Spyware, and Viruses. It's a whole chapter dedicated to this. So if you don't get what you need here, go buy the book.
We're not just going to talk about encryption, though, here. We're going to talk about a few other things that you need to do to secure your router.
Yes, no, you're right. We're going to go through those. So let's get into it. Because it's important.
It is important.
First, to do any of this stuff, you got to get into your router, right? And not everyone knows how to do that.
Right. Now, theoretically, you can set your wireless router up using the software that comes with it. But you know, a lot of times I find that a little bit. You know, it's really good if you've got no particular kinks in your setup at all. But as soon as there's one little thing, it just sends you off the rails. If you're upgrading from an old one, it doesn't necessarily know that you're doing that and doesn't give you the right instructions. So you know what? Let's do this from scratch. So first of all, get your user manual. You'll need to know two useful bits of information for this.
Yes. One?
Number one is the default username and password for your router. And number two is the IP address that you're going to go to get to your router. Now, to set up your router configuration, you do something called surfing the box, where you type the IP address of your router into any web browser. It could be Firefox, could be IE, could be whatever. So you type that in, and each of these routers has a built-in web page where you can custom configure all of your settings.
That's right. Although, however, first of all, you should be connected to the router, obviously, with either a cable directly to it or wirelessly.
Right, and it's easiest to do this using a cable to start with, because then you have a physical connection to it. Any wireless kinks that you go through while doing the setup won't cause your setup process to be interrupted.
That's true.
So,
so should I do that?
Let's do that.
Let's go into that. Okay, so we know actually for a fact that this D-Link router we've got is 192.168.0.1.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the default for all D-Link routers. Linksys would be .1.1 instead.
192.168.1.1. Yeah, Netgear is .2.1, I think.
It tends to vary. I think Belkin is .2.1
Right.
For sure, and I think some of them sort of ping pong back and forth depending on what rev it is and whatever.
Right.
But always the first two will be the same: 192.168.blam.blam.
Yeah.
With one exception, some more professional level ones will give you 10.10.
Yes.
And I think some of the Apple ones will do 10.10 as well. But you usually have the choice for which range you're going into.
But it'll say what it is in your manual,
Right.
and that's the factory settings. So so go check that out. Okay.
And if you don't have your manual anymore, you can download it usually from the manufacturer's website as long as you have the model number for your router.
But the router's not connected because it's broken, so they can't go to the internet.
Well, it's not necessarily broken. It's just maybe not secured. So if you're using the router and it's not secured, you can do that.
Right.
Otherwise, go to a friend's house and download it there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or do it at work. Okay, so but when you first log into your router, of course, you're going to be confronted by a login, a user ID, and a password, and that's has been set up by the manufacturer as well. In the case of we're on a D-Link router here, and I think the standard user ID and password is admin is the user ID, so I'll type that in here. And the password is blank.
It's typically blank. And there are some cases where it'll be username admin, password admin. Some cases the username is blank.
That's what the link says. The username is blank and the password is admin.
Yeah, so again, check your manual for that.
Right.
So let's log in here.
All right.
So once you have that, and if it's not that, then perhaps it's already been changed. But that's one of the first things you're going to want to change when you're doing this process is change the default password of your router so that not everyone can gain access to it.
That's right, yeah.
You want to be in control of this. You don't want other people setting it up for you against your will.
And we're going to take you through this step by step, but know that what we see, what we're showing you here on this WBR 1310 router from D-Link will not be exactly the same if your brand is different.
No.
That said, the areas will be common. There'll be a lot of common areas under different brands, but...
Right, and the terminology that they use for some of this will be just slightly bit different, but
Right.
you'll be able to figure it out if you go looking.
Well, I know for a fact that you can change your user ID and password for the router under Tools on this particular router, so...
Right, you may have something, say, on the Linksys that says System, or something similar to that.
Right.
And you'll find it'll have a spot where it says administrator, password, or just change password.
Change your password, yeah.
All right, so in this case, what we want to do is we want to change the password for this. Because when you see it's a D-Link router, or if you know it's a D-Link router and you haven't changed that, it's very easy for a hacker to say, I know what that is. It's
Right.
admin and blank.
That's right. In fact, they will actually sniff out your IP address, connect to your device, get in there, and you could find yourself locked out of your router, which is a bit embarrassing and a pain in the butt.
That's embarrassing, but it could be even worse. They could change some of the settings that will redirect you to places you don't want to be, and you'll never even know the difference.
Right, right. All right. So first things first, go in and change. So you can leave the login name as admin, but we highly recommend that you change the password to something completely different. I'm
Right.
just going to type it in twice there.
So we have the default screen here.
Yeah, so let's change it to, because it was blank before, so let's
Right.
change it to Labrats, L-A-B-R-A-T-S. Type it a second time, L-A-B-R-A-T-S.
Right. And again, you'll also have a user thing in some of these. So administrator and user, the user will have access to see what's going on the router. They can see what your settings are.
Right.
They just can't change them. But if you don't want random people accessing this, like you're giving your friends access to your network when they come over, you might want to change this one too. Otherwise, they'll be able to see what your settings are. So let's just change that to something else as well.
Change that to...
Preferably something different.
Snacks.
Snacks. Good thing I have a record of this, because this is my own personal router. I want to know what these are later.
All right, there you go. And I'm going to say save settings.
Save settings. Okay, so now essentially it's going to reboot the router with these new settings here.
Right. And you have to wait a couple of seconds. You know, it's not going to be an instantaneous thing. Go get yourself a cold beverage from the fridge or whatever while it does this.
And this is one of the reasons you may not want to do this over a wireless connection, is because if you're setting any of the wireless settings, it'll drop out, and then if you've gotten anything wrong, you've lost access to it completely. So let's go on to the next step.
All right, okay, so let's talk a bit about the actual security part of it. When you send a signal from the router to your computer and you communicate back and forth, that's over wireless. That is open to anybody to sniff it out. If they have a computer with a wireless card and the right tool, they can actually watch that data go by through the air.
In fact, you know what? Let's do a demo here.
All right. What's he going to do?
What's he going to do? We're going to need you, Ryan. So, Ryan, I want you to stand in behind us. You can put down the camera for a while. Okay, so we've got perhaps the funniest fruit of all, kumquats.
Kumquats. All right.
It's the best name. Just stand right here. All right, so with wireless security, essentially what you're doing is, let's just say Andy's the computer, and he wants to get information. So I'm going to send him information like this.
Yes.
Right? And it's out in the open.
Thank you.
And Ryan, you can grab it on the way, and then you can pass it on to him.
There you go, Andy.
Thank you.
And Andy doesn't even know that Ryan had it, in theory.
I didn't know that he touched my kumquat.
Right, so basically I can do this, and if someone's listening, they can intercept it halfway, because if it's open like that, anyone that's listening in can see what's on those packets. Want a kumquat?
Oh, sure.
You can have that one.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Okay.
So,
Handle this way.
all right,
That's Ryan Yule, by the way.
host of Yule's Jewels on the Lab with Leo.
Yeah, he is.
So that's the problem with sending wireless packets back and forth is we've got this stream going back and forth. So it's not just a one-way. Andy would be sending some back to me as well, and vice versa. So we've got this stream of data that's essentially going through the air, and it's interceptable by anyone that happens to connect to that wireless network. They can see what you're sending. Right?
Well, it doesn't taste very good.
They're a little bit sour. But
Right,
it's funny
okay.
to say, kumquat.
Right, okay, so what we want to do is we want to scramble the... can you demonstrate how we scramble this with kumquats? I don't think you can. Maybe you can, I don't know.
Well, if we had a kumquat tube, that I could just hand it directly to you. So what you're doing when you're encrypting your wireless signal is you're essentially putting a wrapping around that, so that even if Ryan grabbed that packet of data, he wouldn't know what to do with it unless he knew the password to get into that particular...
It's kind of like
bit of
scrambling
encryption.
it, actually. It's scrambling the data between the two places.
Yep.
And it's very similar to the technology when you are logged into your online bank account, for example, and you have that encrypted connection. What's happening is information is going between the two, but it's not identifiable, and it's all scrambled, and only both ends know exactly how to scramble and unscramble it.
Think of it like a Rubik's Cube, for example. Like, it's not like an egg where you scramble it and then it's scrambled. It's more like a Rubik's Cube where you scramble it up, but if you know the way that it was done, you can send it back the other way.
Right.
All right? So that's
two types of technologies. Number one is WEP, or Wired Equivalency Privacy. Wired Equivalent Privacy.
Right.
Which is actually an older security technology for wireless routers. And not really in use in a major way today, partly because it's not particularly insecure. With WEP,
particularly, it is insecure.
It is insecure.
It is insecure.
It's insecure. And what they discovered was that if you have the right tool and you watch the packets go back and forth on a WEP connection, eventually you can figure out what encryption algorithms they're using to actually lock that data.
Because the algorithm that WEP uses for that repeats.
Repeats over and
so
over
you
again.
listen long enough, you'll start to see the patterns.
Right, there you go. The newer technology is something called WPA, or Wi-Fi Protected Access. That's not only is it more secure and harder to crack, but it also actually has the advantage where you can, instead of typing, see in the old days in WEP you had to type in a bunch of hexadecimal characters to encrypt it and to decrypt it on both ends. But under WPA now you can just type a phrase, which is kind of handy.
Yeah, and the longer the better, in theory. So, I mean, if Steve Gibson has a password generator that will give you 64 characters of random uppercase, lowercase letters and numbers that you can take and you can use as your key. Now, am I going to recommend this to most of you? No, because you're never going to remember that. But what you can do is you can type in a very short phrase, like Andy is stupid, or Sean is cool, and it'll be
Not good choices.
but they're very short. First of all, they're in the dictionary in theory, and you can guess that. But the longer you make it, the more you change the uppercase and lowercase letters in there, and the more punctuation you add and spaces and things like that, the less susceptible it is to an attack. So what I've got set on my router is a full sentence, complete with punctuation. So
Andy is a hero, Andy rocks, all applicable. Very good, actually, good choices. Andy is cool.
No, not a good choice. Now, on the other hand, Andy's a great big wiener who will do everything in his power to sell his own book.
That's a really good one.
That's a really good one.
Buy Andy's book, Absolute Beginner's Guide to Security, Spam, Spyware, and Viruses.
If you can remember that one all the way through, then by all means use that, because that's a lengthy, strong one. But, you know, more punctuation, more numbers, that definitely helps.
Yes, exactly.
But we're talking about this in theory, and we should probably show this in actual practice.
Oh, let's do that.
So let's change it.
Kumquats at Ryan over here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click on...
Yeah, you beamed them pretty good in the forehead there. How are you feeling, Ryan?
Okay, I'm going to click up Setup, and Wireless Settings here. I'm going to scroll down. And see, we have a choice here of Security Mode. Notice there's Disable, which is very bad.
Yeah, not recommended.
Not recommended. Enable, which is Enable Web, which of course is what we were talking about before, basic security.
Now, and we should say that if all you have on your router is WEP, by all means enable it, because it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, your average kid's not going to be able to hack this, but anybody who has intent will be able to hack it. It's not that easy to hack, but it can be done.
No, you need the tools and you need the know-how. But yes, if it's all you got, use it. If it's not, if you've got WPA, let's go there. So we've got a few different types of WPA out there. There's password or passphrase generating. There's some with numbers and keys. Those are more for enterprise, so don't worry about that. You choose the passphrase-based WPA method.
Yeah, and actually, the newer one, there's actually two versions of WPA. One's called WPA 2. So that's the preferred one. I know Windows Vista, Mac OS 10, both will be able to communicate with routers that have WPA 2 engaged.
Right, so what you do is you'll enable it, and you will go into the passphrase and the confirm passphrase. So basically you'll type the same thing exactly the same way twice, and again, the lengthier the better, as long as you can remember it.
Andy is, oops.
And don't worry if you get something here wrong, because generally your router will have a...
Handsome and clever.
You will have the ability to reset your router completely. So if you mess up during this process, you can set your router back to the defaults.
Yes.
And then start again from scratch. So don't worry about wrecking it completely.
No. Type it twice, of course, and you're good to go.
You know what? I don't like that phrase, so I'm not gonna let you type that.
Okay. All right. What do you want?
Well, let's just leave it the way. They get the idea. So you use your passphrase and confirm it.
And confirm, yeah.
All right. So that's that.
So those are the two things. Now you will, when you connect to this router for the first time, Windows or Mac OS or Linux, I suppose, will ask you for the passphrase, and then you're just going to type that again on your machine.
Yeah.
Now every time somebody comes into your home and wants to connect into your router, you're going to have to give them that passphrase too.
Yeah, some older Windows machines that didn't understand all of this wireless world, you'll have to do a bit of manual configuration in there by going into the network settings of your control panel and right-clicking and all of that. And we're not going to go into that because there's not too many machines out there that are like that at this point.
That's true. I think both XP and Vista support WEP, WPA, and WPA too.
Yeah, and you've got, I think because of XP, it's got something called Wireless Zero Config on there that will automatically sense what type of connection it is and set it up for you. If you've installed a particular brand of adapter card into your machine, it'll come with a client that will also do that for you.
Cool. All right. Good. So that's kind of the ins and outs of those two technologies. Really, that's the most important thing that you can do on your router from a security perspective. However, we're going to show you a couple other small items that you might want to consider. We've already talked about renaming the admin user ID and password. I would also recommend that we go over here into Tools again, and all the way at the bottom here, you'll see a little item here that says Enable Remote Management. So if that's enabled by default, that means that somebody can come into your router from the outside and do this, actually get into it and make some changes and that sort of thing. You want to turn that off, right?
Right. So when you connect to your cable modem or to your DSL or whatever the connection that you've got coming in, you get an IP address to the outside world. So you've got these 192.161 or not 168 on the inside that you use inside your network, but your external network will be an IP address on the internet as a whole.
Yes.
So if someone goes to that one particularly and they know the port that you need to use to gain access to that, in this case it's port 8080, so they would type your IP address, so like 163 dot blah 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 colon 8080, then they'll get this interface, and you don't want that.
No, so you want to turn that off.
Turn that off unless you really need access to your network from the outside world, and only a very few people will need that. If you don't know what we're talking about, turn it off.
That's right. That's what we want.
Advanced network, there's the other one.
Two features that you want to know about here. And again, not necessarily in the same menu as on your router. It just happens to be for this one. But there's two technologies. One's called Enable UPnP, or Universal Plug and Play.
Right. Now, Universal Plug and Play is a technology that allows your computer, with an application that uses networking on it, to say directly to the router, I want you to open a hole in the router so I can do this. So if you have, like, say, Skype and you want to enable a connection.
Yeah. Or a game.
Or a game, or a nasty bit of spyware. And this is why you need to know about this one. It can automatically open a hole in your router without you even knowing about it and start transferring data back and forth.
If UPnP is engaged on your router.
If UPnP is enabled.
Right.
So you want to, in theory, turn this off and enable all of these things on your router manually, setting up tunnels for specific applications.
Port forwarding.
Port forwarding, right.
Which we did cover actually in our, when was it? Because the Skype episode I think we did, Supercharger Skype episode.
Right.
We showed you exactly how to do port forwarding, so you may want to go back and reference that.
Yeah, and we did that for Skype, but you can use that same principle for almost any application that requires a port to be open, like BitTorrent or Windows Media Player even, that sort of thing, for any streaming. Good.
And
so
then the other one.
You enabled it. Let's disable that.
Let's disable that.
Yeah, so make sure it's disabled, and you can save the settings. And
the other one I want to do is I want to turn off Enable WAN Ping Respond. Give me a kumquat for a second here. And you grab one as well. Okay, so Sean's the router, and I'm outside on the internet, and I'm looking for a router to muck around with, to mess with. So I'm going to ping him, and he's going to respond. Right? That says, "Hello, Sean, are you there?" Give me another one. So I'm going to ping. When I ping him, and he basically said, "Yes, I am here. Here's the packet you sent back at me." Now what we're going to do is we're going to disable the WAN ping like this. He's not responding. Now that may seem kind of goofy, but the reality is that since he doesn't respond, I don't know he's there. He's in what's called stealth mode. And that's great, because what you don't want is to respond to a hacker to say, "Yeah, well, I got a router here, no problem."
Not a great idea.
Not a great idea either.
It's a bit sour. You don't want to eat packets if you can avoid it. Now,
so turn that off.
Now, what this doesn't mean is when you turn this off, it doesn't mean that you cannot send or receive data. If you send a piece of data out, say, "I want this," or you connect to a server, you're essentially opening a hole in your router, and you're allowing data to come back through that hole, because you specifically requested it. But anything that is coming at you from the outside, you're going to get no response to anything that comes in from
Right, this is going to mess with Skype.
It's going to mess with Skype unless you open that hole. So go back to our Skype episode to find out how to fix that.
There you go. So I'm going to click on Save Settings here, because those are both really great tips.
And we have one more thing I think that we want to talk about, and I think there's a little bit of misconception about this one as well. Your network name and the SSID.
Right. Okay.
So now the first thing that you're going to want to do with that.
Well, let's describe what SSID is.
SSID is the security set identifier, I believe. And what that is it identifies your network, your wireless network. So by default, when you get one of these, it'll come with a name like Linksys or D-Link or something like that. And you don't want it to say that when someone's checking for internet or wireless internet access points. You don't want to log in and to say D-Link. Because if it does, you probably also haven't changed your administrative settings, and people will know exactly what it takes to hack into that router and gain control of it.
This is the name that your router says, "This is me," when you go and you actually go looking for a wireless router. And what did you say? The Linksys SSID by default is?
Linksys.
Linksys, right, yeah. D-Link you said is default? No, it's default, I think. Or is it changed?
It depends on the router that you have. This one that we got now came as D-Link, and older ones came as default.
It's default, right.
But you can easily identify what it is if you know your routers. And the people that are going to try to gain access to your wireless connection know their routers. So we want to go to the wireless settings here. Again, the basic network settings. And I've already changed this to LabRat, which means nothing except for LabRat, right?
That's right, yeah.
Now, the tendency that a lot of people will have here is when they set up a wireless network in their home for the first time, they want to remember that this is them. So they will type their address in there. And that's a really bad idea for one key reason. Anyone that's driving past will see this and say, 171 Smithfield Road or Main Street or wherever you are has a computer there.
Right.
And they have wireless, so they probably got notebooks too.
So don't put your address in your SSID.
It's a big flag that's saying, we've got technology here that you want to steal.
Come on.
So don't do it. Just make it a little bit more general. Now, someone that really wants to gain access to this can sort of figure out where you are, but don't make it any easier for them than you have to.
Don't put your name in it either. Don't put your name in it.
Don't put your name.
You know, any personal identification information, just avoid that.
So,
use something arbitrary. Use something fun. You know, use something like I don't know, green apples or my favorite jeans or I don't know, anything.
Yeah, you can if you like a particular singer, you can use that. If you're a fan of Star Trek or Star Wars, you can name it after one of your favorite characters.
Right.
Just as long as it means something to you, and you'll remember that that's you.
And it's unique.
And it's unique.
Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing is you don't want to be naming it the same as one of your neighbors because your machine will try to log on.
There can be some conflicts then, yes.
Right, exactly.
So there's that one thing. So now people have talked about hiding that information.
Yes.
And
down here,
enable hidden wireless, also called SSID broadcast. So there's other ones that say suppress SSID broadcast. So you would think by doing that, what happens is when you enable that setting, you can't see it on most computers.
You can't browse to it. No.
You actually have to know what it is that you're looking for and enter it manually.
Right.
And they're calling that security through obscurity. But you know what? It doesn't really help.
Anybody who's looking for your router is going to find it anyway. They're going to sniff it out using a special piece of software. So
right. So it's wide open. It may not appear on your computer, but anyone with the tool will find it like that. The only people that are going to be fooled by this are people who aren't going to hack into your router anyways. So don't even bother. And there's some performance issues potentially when you turn that off because
that's true. It slows it down.
It slows it down a little bit, and it may not work 100%. So just keep it online. Just change it to something meaningful to you that doesn't identify you.
Right. Good. Well, I guess that's pretty much it, no?
I think that is.
Now, and I will give myself another plug here, but it's very relevant here, is I did actually cover an entire chapter on wireless security in my book, Absolute Beginner's Guide to Security, Spam, Spyware, and Viruses, because it's a very, very important topic. And, it is. It really is. All right, well, let's take a look at another message from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
Earlier in the show, we asked you what screencast editor can be left unsupervised and doesn't smell like feet. Is it A, a pair of sneakers, B, a Jack Russell Terrier, or C, Camtasia Studio 4? The answer is Camtasia Studio 4. Learn more at labrats.techsmith.com.
I like episodes with kumquats.
It is one of the funniest of all fruits.
It's a funny fruit. It's a little sour. I got to say, I had one during the break.
I think it's a bit of an acquired taste.
Oh, it's like taking a bite into an orange peel.
Mm-hmm. If you ever see them and you wanted to know how to eat them, you don't peel them, you just eat the whole thing.
Yeah. Or you get a little tiny little orange peeler.
If you really want.
Like oranges for Barbies.
You're missing the best part then. Are you one of those people that gets apples and peels the skins?
No, I'm not that anal.
All right. So for any of you out there that actually do peel the skins off of your apples, we like you too. And we don't think you're at all anal.
Okay, photographs. It's time for photographs. Da, 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 da.
Yes, send us your photographs. We will show them. We used to say on the big screen behind us, but we don't really have one right now. So, but we will still put them up no matter where we are. This is Ryan, and he is a fellow geek. And he actually pointed out that this little router in behind one of his hard drives there is the same one we used for one of our earlier demos.
Cool.
So there we go. There's the connection with this episode.
Fun.
So Ryan, if you haven't done so already, secure that thing.
Hey, dude, clean up your room too. It's kind of messy.
I've seen your room. All right, and on a less happy note.
Oh no.
This is George, one of our viewer George's fiance Beth's cat Piper.
Yeah.
Who recently passed away.
Oh.
Very suddenly, but she has 2 cats, and she was mentioning how much both of them looked like Biff.
Oh.
And
I miss Biff.
Piper here does look a little bit like Biff.
Yeah, he does.
But anyways, we're sorry to hear that that Piper
sad.
passed on, and
This is our tribute. We dedicate this entire
dedicate
episode
this one
to Piper.
But to Piper, yes.
All right. I have some fun news.
More fun
I
news?
have fun news. It's not a promotion for me, although it could be.
It is kind of.
Well, it kind of is. Okay. So we have these buttons made up. Here, Sean, you hold them here.
Why am I holding these? All right.
So we got some buttons, right? Check it out. So, like you see, fun buttons, labrats.tv. And there's a Sean one.
There's an Andy.
An Andy.
And Biff and Boo, the one you really want.
Which are, people love those when we give them out at public appearances and stuff like that. So if you want one, if you want a set, I should say, send us an email to feedback@labrats.tv and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I live in so-and-so, and we will send you a bill via PayPal for $10, which will cover our postage and handling and basic costs. We're not making much money off of these things.
Yep.
And we will mail them to you. Now, the first 100 that we send out, the one that has the labrats.tv on there, we're actually going to sign Sean and Andy. Okay?
As well as we can on such
as well
a small
as we can
button.
on such with a little marker or something.
Maybe
like
our
that.
initials, but it'll be us.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of fun, huh? Lab rat stuff?
Yeah.
People love them. People love them. We go to conferences and stuff like that. We're like, give us some Lab Rats buttons. So there you go. I guess that's it for us.
That is.
It is. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Lab Rats and wireless security. I guess we'll say goodbye. My name's Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
We'll see you next time.
Are you ready? Try this at home.
You see my fancy socks?
It's very attractive socks, yes. Where'd you get those from? Are they Vancouver socks?
No, they don't even have the name on them. These are from The Gap.
Right. Well,
They're kind of Vancouver socks.
Vancouver socks. How exciting. All right.